So, I got a bit of a hot take. I'm not really a Spielberg fanboy. Oh, AJ, what about E.T.? What about Jaws? What about Jurassic Park? Yeah, they are most certainly some of the movies of all time. Out of all the movies that exist, they are definitely one of them. And don't even get me fucking started on Ready Player One. I fucking hate that movie. It's like one of the worst looking movies I've ever seen. And I'm sorry, not sorry if that offends you. Anyway, despite me not really being a Spielberg fanboy, I was weirdly looking forward to his latest film, The Fabelmans. Mainly because it was Spielberg being grounded in reality and telling us a story about how he got into film. And I always love when directors do that. Martin Scorsese did once say that the most personal is the most creative, and I agree with that 100%. With The Fabelmans, Spielberg makes his childhood cheesy, overdramatic, overly emotional, sentimental, and I'm sure some of it is made up, like how Spielberg basically made a waifu for his younger self, but it still managed to have an effect on me. And even though I'm not the hugest Spielberg fan, I started to realize what people mean when they talk about the magic of Spielberg, as cheesy as that sounds. The Fabelmans has elements that normally I would scoff at. Like I said, it is cheesy and overly sentimental, but for me, and this is more of a personal thing, I don't think I've related this much to a movie all year. It was actually pretty terrifying how much this movie calls me out. Okay, so here's a fun fact about me, which is also probably the most ironic thing about me. I used to be terrified of movie theaters when I was a young kid. Why? Because I was scared of dark and I was scared of loud noises. How does The Fabelman start off? Little boy Spielberg's parents trying to convince him not to be afraid of movie theaters, but he's hesitant because he's scared of dark and loud noises. People call this overly sentimental and cheesy. I call it my childhood. But easily the thing I related to the most in this movie was Michelle Williams' performance as Spielberg's mother. She is down to a fucking T, borderline exactly like my own mother. From how she talks, to how she moves, to how she cries, to how loving she is, her supportive attitude, the amount of emotion she puts into everything. She reminded me so much of my own mother that there is a scene in which she is reacting to a film that Sammy made, and I couldn't help but to start crying because her reaction is exactly how my own mom would react. Michelle Williams is one of my favorite actresses, and she gets one of my favorite performances of the year. People say that she overacted, and that might be true, but I didn't see Michelle Williams. I saw my mom, and for that, I'll forever be in love with this portrayal. The only thing I didn't relate to was the divorce. My parents are not divorced, but I'm sure if they were, my mom would have acted exactly like Michelle Williams' character during that scene. But my dad is nothing like Paul Dano in this movie, so he wouldn't have acted like him. That part was a little too cheesy, come on man. Gabriel LaBelle also is pretty great here. Honestly, one of the better performances from a young actor I've seen in years. You can see his passion, but you can also see his confusions and frustrations, and it does feel very believable. I also believe that this is one of Spielberg's most mature movies that he's made. He doesn't pretend like Sammy is this all-great person just because he has a passion and makes movies. It is implied that he possibly cares more about making movies than his own personal life. He always seems to put movies first and everything else second. He finds out deep personal secrets through making movies. Spielberg could have glamorized the idea of making movies, and he does, but he also adds a list of cons to it. I'm sure Spielberg loves his job, but he realizes here that nothing is really perfect, not even his job. And I'm sure he realizes that there are people who would put their craft over their everyday life. Actually, there are definitely people that would put their craft over their everyday life. But I think what he's trying to say is that you really don't need to be perfect. Nothing is really perfect, but you can still make good work and make time for your everyday life. There needs to be a balance. And I believe that balance of showing your passion for filmmaking but also showing your love for your family was portrayed brilliantly in the movie. It really took its time to get that point across, but it was never boring for me. Sure, there are moments that are on the nose as fuck, and yes, I'll even say way too cheesy, but I still believed every reaction. I still believed every situation, and that might be because I relate to it on a substantial level. Fabelmans felt like something that I truly needed, especially being 26 years old, being a few years out of college, and still not entirely sure on what to do. It's frustrating, and I'm glad that frustration was portrayed authentically, while also making me appreciate the little things in my life. It's very sentimental and cheesy, as I've said multiple times, but I can't imagine the story being told in any other way. It's a gentle reminder that you can do anything, but it's also a gentle reminder that in any situation,
well, nobody's perfect.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Here are my socials if you want to connect with me. And don't forget to subscribe. I got some exciting stuff coming your way. And also, don't forget I have a music channel. Alright, bye-bye.